So as Steve mentioned, as JP is running through, if you get some questions, then please pop them into the little questions and answers box, and we'll get back to you. Let's rock and roll and get on to the interesting stuff. So let me pass you on to JP. Yeah, go for it, JP.
Thank you, Matthew. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is JP, or Jean-PIerre, how to officially pronounce it. I'm Dutch. I'm based in the Netherlands. So it's 3 o'clock local time. So don't be scared when you see my system clock running in a couple of seconds. And I'm gonna show you old new stuff live. So it's not recorded. It's a live presentation. And I'm gonna use my PowerPoint slide deck just as a guideline, because there is so much to tell with this brand new release that again, it's easy to remember, that I don't forget anything. And by the way, some briefly background information. I'm a Max guy. I started using 3D Studio DOS 3.0 in the beginning of the 90s, so I'm a veteran, and I'm touching both Max and Maya. But again, this webinar is all about new stuff in Max 2017. And to be honest, I am quite excited about this release. I'm always really honest. If features are not good or not finished, I will provide my opinion about it. But for this release, Autodesk really did a good job. And I know every year we're going to say, well, guys, you know, this is the best Max release ever. And I'm going to say it again. But hopefully you will get convinced in this 60 minutes presentation that it's really, really good stuff. What is going on inside 3ds Max, since we have the momentum running again due to all the new developers and so on. So yeah, let's start with some basic stuff. And this can be annoying in the beginning, or when you start working in Max 2017 and when you just switched over from 2016. And that is the complete new UI. So based on Qt, having that as an overlay, we do have what we call the HDPI display support. So literally stands for high dots per inch. So what means by that if you do have a 4K display, your UI is properly scaling if you change your Windows display scaling, which was not the case in the previous release, and it was so annoying. I do remember I was at IBC last year presenting Max on a 4K display, but the scaling didn't work, so the icons and text, it was so tiny to read. Maya already had the new high DPI display, and now Max 2017 does have it as well. So it doesn't matter which scale you are running. Even if you do have an 8K display, for instance, there are the icons are available. So all icons can be scaled up to every resolution you want. Downside of that, it's going to take a while to get used to all the new icons, because they look fresh, new, and different. But of course, they are exactly on the same place as where they were before. But it's gonna take a while. The other hand, if you're used to it, you switch back to Max 2016. It doesn't look so slick and fresh anymore. So a couple of things to mention. Again, what I told you, it's correctly applying when changing your Windows display scaling, and it's Qt-based scaling. So that's a start. Qt is being used inside Mudbox, inside Maya Motion Builder, and now the Qt skin is also going to be adapted inside 3ds Max. So it's gonna take a while, but we're starting with that already. Also, which is a huge difference compared with previous releases regarding to some viewport updates is performance. Okay, so we do have, and I'm going to show it in real time in a couple of seconds, we do have what we call the performance mode, which is going to provide you, depending on your scene, a 200–300% better performance than before. Similar things go for the override UV checkers. So in the viewport, we can see all the UVs as an override based on a UV checker map. So there's no need to do that yourself anymore. Per view setting dialogues, I'm going to show you that. And yeah, some users were asking so many times, why are we not able to define the point of interest while doing an orbit? And now that's available inside Max, and I'm going to also talk a bit about viewport switching in maximized viewport. Performance is always a bit tricky, especially when broadcasting via the web. So I do have some numbers, okay, some examples based on a scene with about 3,000 objects with 9 million polys, and when you start orbiting with a scene, what you get in the viewport with the frames per second. So if we compare Max 2014, that will give you an average of 6 to 10 frames per second. The same scene in Max 2017 goes immediately up to 80 to 130 frames per second. Also, there's a huge improvement in deforming mesh performance. So mainly sub-object animation, that's due to the new GPU mesh builder. So you do get a huge improvement over there. Even if you have tens of thousands of objects, you do get much better performance, especially sub-object selection, like dense mesh, go into a vert and drag a region and try to select, well, many verts. Okay, in the past it was really slow, so that's speed up hugely right now in Max 2017. And unwrap, I'm gonna talk about unwrap. It's 10 times faster. And why is that? Because unwrap UV is running on the GPU, so that's where we get a huge performance in there. So let me switch to Max 2017, and I already have a scene open. So this is what you will get. I guess there will be some people who already start working with Max 2017. So it's gonna take some time to get used to the new UI. But again, it's fresh. It's looking like a modern application is looking these days. So all the icons are being factorized and are being redesigned. And that means in the main toolbar, in the Scene Explorer, we have new icons. Of course, in the Unwrap UV editor, they're everywhere. Okay, so in this scene, just to start off with a very small example, the point of interest. It can be found down here in your viewport navigation. So if you hold down the left mouse button, you will get the flyout. And there's a new icon, and this one is the disc with the small sphere in the center, and that's the new point of interest. So of course it's gonna activate my my arc or my orbit. And if I start using my shortcut key, the Alt and mouse key, then I'm able to set my point of interest. That's the green sphere which you're seeing right now. So that's gonna make life a bit more easier regarding to navigation. Similar approach when you start using the Control Alt and the mouse wheel, or start zooming in. That's again the same idea for having a point of interest. Okay, so those are requested by many users. Regarding to the performance and views, what we have, instead of having 3 viewport labels, we have an additional one. So we still have the plus sign down here where we restore the viewports, and of course set the grid, the view cube, steering wheel, and so on. We still have our views. So if it's a perspective, what's being fixed there, if you switch to a top view, and then get back to perspective view, you're staying in the same orientation as the perspective was. So it's not like it was before, that if you switch to a top, then go to perspective, that you will get into a perspective top view. So that's being fixed as well. And I have seen some people complaining that they don't like that. They like the old behavior, but especially new users, they are always, they don't understand why that when they switch from top to perspective that they get a perspective top. Anyhow, this menu, we changed some things. So naming, so high quality is the realistic mode like we have in the past. We still have the standard, which is shaded mode, and we have the new performance mode. So if you set it to performance, immediately you do get a shader override in the viewport, and this is where things will speed up when you start orbiting your scene. Let me, again, it's not a big theme, but let me start orbiting around. Okay, I'm running about 192 frames per second. Then it's you can read the amount of polys I have. So that's the performance mode. And what's happening under the hood? This is going on. So in the materials, you can see it's automatically setting the override with fast shader that's going on. So it's going to switch it back. You do get a huge performance improvement, especially when playing back your animations and so on. I'm gonna set it back to high quality. The fourth menu, that's a new one. Well, literally not new, but it's a new location. So that's where all the shading part itself lives. So like, well, the hidden line, the wireframe, the viewport background, and so on and so on and so on. New is per view preference. So that literally means that we can define all the settings per viewport. This is a Qt-based dialog, and all the settings are being saved in an XML-based file. So you can open them up and start changing the parameters in an XML file. So again, nothing really new in there. We only have the transparency mode, depending if I set my display mode to DirectX. So again, this is per viewport and XML based, and again it's a Qt dialog. So that's happening in there. Some other interesting stuff. Let me select this part and let me start zooming a bit into there, and I'm gonna swap over to a subobject. So let's go to polygon subobject. Okay, we already had, of course, when you double click on a poly, you're making selections, shift clicking, but now we have what we call a preview of the loop. Okay, so I'm holding down the shift key, and I'm not clicking, I'm just holding down the shift key, and that's gonna do a preview of the loop and a ring. And that's, of course, working with all sub-objects. So for instance, if I switch over to an edge, hold down shift, you do get a preview, okay, edge loop or edge ring. And it's also working on birds and so on and so on. So if I switch back to polygon, a new option we have is pick some kind of pick walking. So if I hold down shift and if I start dragging out again, you do get a preview in which direction the polys are going to be selected. So that's when you start holding down the shift key inside Max 2017. Okay, so you can do, well, shift click and start dragging like that. Okay, fine. And in that direction, and again, I'm just holding down the shift key and I'm painting out my selection. So that's quite nice in regards to the sub-object selection. So let's go back to top level. Okay, I'm gonna orbit again. I want to focus on these two objects. Okay, what else we have? For instance, if I go into a polygon sub-object, okay, so I might switch it to polygon, and I would like to scale down my selected polygons. So of course, I can use my quad menu, right-click, or use my shortcut key. I'm gonna scale it. Okay, and small addition. We have the scale cursor. Hooray! And if I switch this one to move, you do get a move cursor, and rotate, you do get a rotate cursor. Right? Switching back to scale. So this was a very nasty behavior in the past. When I start scaling my multiple sub-objects, and even while I set my coordinate system to local, and if I start scaling this, this is what you will get. Okay, so it doesn't scale how you would like to have that. So now we have what we call the local aligned coordinate system, the local aligned coordinate system, and that's going to do a much better scaling when you have multiple sub-objects selected and you want to scale them. So that's a new coordinate system in there. Okay, be aware of that one. Another small addition, really nice, is this one. Imagine I'm going to select this object. I'm going to add, let's do a basic taper modifier. So terms, going to scroll down, taper, and well, I'm not going to define any curve, or that's not the goal right now. I'm going to copy the modifier, and I'm going to do a multiple selection. So I'm going to select this, well, this is the barrel, and the other one. Okay, so I do have two objects selected, and I'm going to do a right click in the modifier stack. And ta-da, we can paste or paste instance modifiers to a multiple selection. And this was, again, this was not possible before. So I'm gonna paste it, and ta-da, there is my taper modifier. So it's quite nice that we do have options like that. So copy paste one multiplier to multiple objects. Okay. Another one, also very nice. Imagine, let me zoom out a little bit. Oh, that was a bit too much. I'm going to add the good old flex modifier. Okay, cool. So in my modifier list, I'm going to do a flex modifier, and we all have, especially in the beginning when we were learning Max, we were busy with the parameters, like, well, let's change the flex amount. What's happening? Nothing. Let's change the strength. Nothing is happening. And then you realize, oh, what did I do? What is the default setting? So that's really easy, because now when you do a right click in the field of a parameter, you will find the option called set to default. And set to default will automatically set the default value back. So that's really handy to have that as well. Also new down here is with regards to keys. So we already have the option like add a key and delete all keys. And the option down here is copy key. So if you have a keyframe on a modifier, we can copy the key by right clicking in the field of the modifier. So that's also being added in there. It's quite nice. And well, most of the time users are overlooking all these kind of small features, but they are in there. Okay, right. Another option. Imagine if I select this object, I go to the rotate tool, and I'm busy with my ePoly. I need to go into polygon, and then I do realize, I need to have another working pivot. So in the past, what you had to do was get out of sub-object, go to the hierarchy panel, go to your edit working point, use working point, and so on. And then you had to step back into the sub-object. So that's quite annoying. So we're speeding things up these days by having the place pivot surface by default in your default quad menu. So immediately when I switch over to place pivot surface, auto grid is switched on, so I'm able to position my working pivot. So if I set the working pivot, I can position it roughly about there. We have the caddy, and the caddy have an option for resetting this one. I can choose OK, that's fine, or I can cancel it out. And if the working pivot point is set, of course, he will automatically set your coordinate system to working, and the transform coordinate center will be switched on. So that's also quite a handy option for switching your pivot point while you're in a modeling environment. So let's switch back to my PowerPoint so that I'm sure that I'm not forgetting anything. So we talked about the working pivot, the local align, sub-object pick can be overridden with a new option in your shortcut keys, copy-paste modifiers, and spinner updates as well. Right, then we have the asset library. And asset library doesn't make part of VDS Max by default, but can be downloaded from the Autodesk App Store and is available for both Max 2016 and Max 2017. And what is it? Well, like the name already reveals, it's for managing your assets. And it can be assets on your local drive, it can be a network drive, can be online, and collections can be saved out, can be shared with your other employees, and it's giving you previews of all your viewable files in the File Explorer. So what I mean by that, imagine you have an inventor file, and if you don't have inventor installed, you don't get a thumbnail view in the File Explorer. But if you install Inventor, you do get a thumbnail. So if you have a general application for viewing thumbnails, if you are able to view, well, like DWG files, SketchUp files, different CAD files, texture files, all files which can be seen as thumbnails in the File Explorer can be used with the asset library. So it's quite easy. It's a standalone application, be aware of that. So it lives outside Mac, and it can access and manage local and network model libraries. And it's going to be, well, dragging and dropping scene, where we can define, will the drop be an import? Will it be an extract? Or will it be a replace, which is quite nice, because it doesn't check the name. It's only checking the selection, and the selection is going to be replaced by the incoming file, which is quite nice. So let me switch back to Max. So if you have installed Max 2017, in the main menu, in the content, we have the option to launch the 3ds Max Asset Library. If not installed, it's going to point you to the Autodesk App Store, the Exchange, where you can download the asset library. And again, it also lives as an external application. So if I check my Start menu, I do have my 3ds Max Asset Library down here. Okay, so it's an external standalone application. It's best to be used with a second display because it's taking up quite some space. And by default, you don't have any locations. So only Seek is being shown, and Seek is a general place for downloading CAD files. So if I want, I can start with searching on Seek. So for Max and Maya, what we use in Seek are the trees. So if I start by searching, let's do trees, we will automatically check for the XFrog collection. So that's the vegetation, which can be downloaded also from the help menu. Okay, so this is online. We have the list view, we have thumbnail view, and these are, well, literally the Max files. You do get a preview, but since these are still online, I have to download these as well. More interesting is, of course, for your own assets, which are being stored on your local drive or on your network server. So I'm gonna delete my Seek. And the only thing what you need to do is just what it says. Drag content folders here or click Add to browse. So what I can do is I can open up my File Explorer, can go to my documents, my webinar, my asset library. So I do have well, some folders with cars, with inventor files, with a Revit file, with textures, and some local trees. The only thing what you need to do, make a selection, drag in there, okay, and that's literally it, right? So if I go to the trees, I do have a couple of them. So I've downloaded all the vegetation once years ago. I do have a bad thumbnail. It would be wise to open the file and resave it again. But this is, well, the young one. This is the medium and the adult tree. So that one is bigger. And basically you get previews of the max file. So if I have Revit files, he will show you the thumbnail of the Revit file. Inventor files. So again, these are all my inventor, my part files and assembly files. I do have some cars down here. Let's do my Audi. There it is. Okay, so that's the max file, and this is, well, basically the texture. And again, textures can be showed as well. So I have my textures in there. Can be filtered out if you want. So by using these three icons up here, filter, it's not active. If I select it, now it's active. Okay, so it's filtering out. And by right-clicking, you're able to set up, okay, what would you like to be visible in the list? So by default, it's showing up my max files and my OBJ files. But again, as what you can see, it's all the importable files which are being supported inside Max can be shown down. Same goes for the textures. So I can filter out the texture files. So right now the default is filtering JPEG, but I can also filter for QuickTimes, AVIs, and so on and so on and so on. And the last one is for my script files. So if I have any Max scripts or any MCGs, Max creation gaps, that's being supported as well. The idea from this is basically select an asset and use the option down here. So it's gonna merge or it's gonna import the file. The difference is import will show you the merge dialog, and general merge will just merge the file. We have an XREF, so it's gonna create an XREF scene. Okay, so not an XREF object, an XREF scene, and this is the replace. And we still have the good old replace object, find and replace. Quite annoying, because that one is checking for the name. The name needs to be exactly the same as the incoming file. Well, this replace trusts on selected objects. So if you select, well, in a scene, a circle or point helper, or multiple point helpers, you set the asset library to replace, drag it in, all the point helpers, the selected point helpers will be replaced with the incoming file. And that's the idea. And it's really nice for doing vegetation, cars, all that kind of stuff, which takes a long time for the rendering. And the collections, that's what we do for sharing the location of the folders and so on. So that's the asset browser. Quite nice. It's version 1.1, so there will be lots of development going on with that one. But like it is right now, it's quite nice to start organizing and managing your assets. Right. Back to my PowerPoint. Next thing to talk about, yeah, right, the new renderer. So with regards to rendering, we still have the good old scanline rendering, which also has a new addition, so it supports up to 152 CPUs, so that's new. We still have NVIDIA Mental Ray in there, nothing really new, except that global illumination can be calculated on the GPU. So there's a new checkbox in Mental Ray. Of course, we also have NVIDIA iRay, but still you need a very decent GPU for that. Since last year, Autodesk implemented the Autodesk Raytracer renderer inside AutoCAD, inside Revit, inside Inventor, and inside Fusion 360. And now the render is also available in Max. Okay? It's a CPU-based render, and it is, yeah, of course, it's 100% compatible with any design data you will get out of CAD. It's quite easy to set it up. Be aware, it's ideal for architectural, product, and industrial renderings and animation. So it does have some limitations, which are quite annoying. Like, for instance, proxy system. It doesn't have or doesn't support the proxy system. So that's quite annoying. And let me guys show you what it's gonna happen with that one. So I'm gonna open up and see down here. It's a basic car. Okay. And what I like to do, I like to show you how easy it is to set it up and to start making a decent rendering, right? So art, again, it's a CPU-based render. It's a path tracer. So the name is like Raytracer, but it's a path tracer. So I'm going to set an environment. So I'm going to open up my environment, and I'm going to use an HDR. Okay, so I'm going to load in the bitmap, and I'm going to browse through my documents, my webinar, my Raytracer. There it is. Okay, I'm going to open it up, see if there's default. I'm going to set the exposure to physical camera exposure, because we introduced in Max 2016 the physical camera developed by the Chaos Group, which is available inside Max 2016 already. Interesting to finally see that process background and environment map is turned on by default. We do have some additional controls, by the way, with regards to your white balance. In the past, this was only available on the physical camera itself in the modify panel. That's fine. I'm gonna set my view to high quality. I want to see my viewport background, which is the environment. Okay, so nothing new. Interesting is with art, there is no need to start adding a skylight or to disable the default lighting. That's what we did with Iray. So immediately I can go into render setup. I can change the resolution. Let's do an HD 128720. And in the art renderer tab, the art renderer is going to do a noise reduction. So the render quality is based on decibel. So by default it's set to draft. If you want, we can also set it to time or iterations. But for now, let's do, well, between draft and medium. We have a noise filtering. That's the interesting part. So it's going to filter out the noise, which is a render element as well. So if you would like to have multiple noise filters, just go into the render elements and add a render element, which is the art renderer noise filter. And then you can set the first one to 25%. You can add the second one to 50, and the third one to 70, 75. Okay. Let me do a preview. I need to check my exposure, if that's fine. Okay. Perhaps a bit too bright. Okay. And let's do render. So the materials which I'm using are the new physical-based materials. I'm going to talk about that in a couple of minutes. We have a scene converter for that, so by using a conversion, in a couple of seconds we can convert good old mental ray materials or standard materials into physical materials. So interesting, art, environment, that's the only thing you need to do. And if you want to add some shadows, some background shadows, just add a plane. Okay, that one was a bit off. Okay, roughly gonna position it like that. And the only thing what I'm gonna do from my rendering menu, I'm going to open up my material map browser, and I'm gonna add my matte shadow reflection material on the ground plane. Ta-da, that's it. And I'm gonna hit render production. So again, there's no need to do some tricky stuff with an environment background switcher and plug the switcher into the mod shadow. And again, it's especially for design, it's not bad. Okay. You probably also have heard the announcement of the acquisition of Arnold. I think, in my humble opinion, that is really important to also have, yeah, a better renderer, which is owned by Autodesk, so which doesn't have any need for third-party support like we have right now with NVIDIA. So that's, again, briefly, art renderer. It's easy to set up. Just bring in HDR. No need to turn off default lighting and start using the belonging materials. Let's go to the next slide. So we have the physical material, and we have the new physical sun and sky environment. The good thing is that both are open for developers. So other developers like Chaos Group are able to render the physical sun and sky environment and the physical material in their own render solution. And that's the ultimate goal we have. So inside Max, let me open up another theme and let me show you the physical material. Okay. So we all know, especially if you are using Max for a couple of years, like what I do, we're coming from far, from very, very, very far. So in the past, we were all using the standard scanline based material. Then we start using mental ray, also in the 90s. I still have the original documentation, and that was, well, some voodoo based hocus pocus settings we need to make. So still in the arts and design, it's still in there. It's supported by art, even as the car paint material. But the latest material we have, especially this one is developed for art, is a physical-based material. So, because with the old art and design material, we are still doing weird things. So this material is completely cleaned up. Okay, so it does have. Let me close this one. By default, it's going to show you the basic parameters, like base color and reflection. It does have a metalness value. It does have, by default, Fresnel, so the index of refraction works with a Fresnel curve, and it does have a roughness value, like having a physical shader. Same goes for a physical shader in Autodesk Stingray, which is a game engine, or Unity, and so on. It does have transparency. And also, if I change the roughness for the base color, it's going to change the roughness for the transparency as well. Subsurface scattering and emission, and on top of that, we have an additional layer, which is the coding. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to open up my active shade. Sorry for that. So I've set my active shade in the render setup to art. Let's hit render. And let active shade just take a couple of seconds to start running on the CPU. Come on, there we go. Yeah, okay, active shade. So let me position it down there. Okay, so I'm in active shade. I'm not sure I'm in a perspective. Let's switch over to perspective view. So when I'm in a perspective view, of course, I'm running my active shade. So if I start panning around, if I start zooming around, you will immediately see updates in the active shading. Right. So based on the parameters, we start with the base color. Of course, we have the base color. So if you set a different base color, you do get a different diffuse. Okay. So this was the old diffuse. It's called base color and reflections. If you don't want any reflections, you can set the index of refraction to 1, okay, and then you do get basically a matte object. Oh, my numlock on my keyboard needs to set that 1, so value 1, and you don't get any, or there is a coating, could be, yeah, there's a coating. Let me turn the coating off. Okay, now the coat layer is turned off. So this is, by by default the material. It only has a base color, and it does have by default a refraction Fresnel-based Fresnel curve, right? And it's hidden, by the way, because I'm in the standard material mode. If I switch it over to advanced, then you will get back the good old Fresnel curve. Right now, if I start changing my metalness value to 1, of course, then you will get a metal look surface. Okay, so still the roughness is set to 0.55. It is set the roughness to 0. Okay, I do get my nice green, shiny, metallic look and feel into the physical material. Of course, nothing new. Roughness, same what we did with the arts and design, but then it was called glossiness, right? But still, we can invert it. So if we invert this one, then it's going to show you the old behavior, because right now, lesser roughness is a shinier surface itself. Okay, so I can still set the Fresnel. Let's do a 1.45. Okay, to add some slight reflections. And if I want, I can add a coating layer on top of this as well. So it's a clear coat. If I set this to 1, you do get an additional layer of clear coat on top of the material. Both layers do have a roughness and color. So both layers also have a map. So we have bump map for the general base color or diffuse color, if you would like to pronounce it like that. And we have a noise for the coating bump map as well. Of course, besides that, we have the transparency. So to start creating glass, set the transparency to 1, change the depth of the glass. If it's thin-walled or solid glass, we have the subsurface scattering, and we have the emission. And that's literally it. That's all what we have. Of course, we have presets. So if you want to, load in presets, there are many presets in here, and you can set it if you want from standard into advanced, and then you will get your Fresnel curve, which was visible in the arts and design material. Okay, so quite nice material. Of course, what I don't like is to manually convert all the arts and design materials or Autodesk materials or scanline materials, and even goes for my exposure, for the cameras, the maps, and so on. I don't like that, and that's why we have a scene converter in Max 2017. And the scene converter, it does what it says. It's converting your scene. And it can convert your open file. It can convert in batch multiple files, and it's literally based on conversion rules. It's based on script, so you can add your own. You can do some customization. For instance, if you want to convert your scene into Corona materials or V-Ray materials, or you want to convert your scene to the DirectX shader for Stingray, all that can be done by using the scene converter. So that's also new in the rendering menu, scene converter, and it's really easy. It does exactly what it says. So it's gonna convert to art by default, based on a max script file. Okay, so options does create a backup. If you want, you can switch it off. You can convert reference files, so extract files as well. Conversion scripts folder. So if you open this one, you do get, this is available by default, many scripts which can be customized, or you can add your own scripts for your own scene conversions, for your own renders. So literally, it's gonna convert to materials, mental array, A&D to physical, Autodesk materials to physical, standard material. It's gonna convert maps. It's gonna convert cameras. So the good old free and target camera into physical. It's gonna convert lights. It's gonna convert exposure. It's gonna convert everything you want daylight system that's going to be converted as well. So scene converter, literally just hit convert scene, and it will be converted. Really, really nice to have inside Max 2017. Right, unwrap. That's another big chapter. So unwrap, again, what it said, is 10 times faster than Max 2016, and that's because we're using the GPU for speeding up things in there. So it's really fast. It does have complete new algorithms for packing. It supports multi-tiles. It does have distortion maps, angle distortion maps. So it's really nice. And I'm watching at my clock. Let's open up Unwrap. Okay, there we go. So a very simple character, a GNOME. Going to modify. I've converted this one to any poly. I deleted all the maps, sorry, the UVs. And if I open up my Unwrap UV, there we go. First things first. What's really good is easy, small additions, like double-clicking an edge is finally looping the edge. So that's number one, double-clicking or behavior like we are used to have inside ePoly. Okay, so double-clicking for loops, for rings, and so on. Now, what about this? Let me set my symmetrical geometry selection on. Okay, and let me start by making selections. Ta-da! Symmetrical. Finally, we are able to do symmetrical selections into the UV editor. Material IDs. That was also very annoying. You were not able to change the material ID while you were busy inside your Unwrap, and now that can be achieved as well immediately down here. I'm gonna reset this. Right. What I want to do, come on, okay. I would like to start by adding some seams. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go back into my edge subobject, and I'm gonna double click down here, this edge. Come on. Oh, let me check. Oh, want to be an edge. Double click. There we go. And I'm gonna add some additional edges as well. I'm gonna convert this to a seam. Can do that down here. So we have the convert edge selections to seam. We can do, let me manually do this. Gonna select this the good old way of setting my own seams. Okay, gonna convert this one. I'm gonna do this one. I'm gonna double click this one, and I'm gonna convert this, and I'm gonna use my point-to-point seam. An interesting point-to-point seam will now show you the preview. Okay, in the past you were clicking, but you were not sure if you were in the right direction. And now it's gonna preview where you are. Okay, really nice. Okay, I'm gonna go out of subobject. Okay, I'm gonna open up my UV editor. I don't have the time to do all the seams, but to be honest, if your seams are ready, you can use the quick view, and it's automatically, it will be very good. Also, small things. If you double click on a polygon, you will automatically start selecting the cluster. So let me do, I know it's really a bad example, but regards to the time, I'm going to do a quick peel, okay? So that at least I do have some clusters. So if I double click again, it's going to select the cluster. If I isolate it down here, you will automatically isolate the same polygons in the viewport. Look at that, okay? Really nice, okay? So if I want to see any distortion or the checker map, can be done down here. So we have the new checker map, so I'm able to visualize the checker map. We have the angle distortion down here, and we have the area distortion, where I can set it just basically back to my texture checker map. Right. Multi-tile is supported, so if I switch on multi-tile, I can bring this cluster to another tile. And we do have a new map called multi-tile, so you can start by painting your maps in ZBrush or Mari or Mudbox, whatever you would like to use in there. Besides that, we do have a new gizmo, so things are much easier, much faster to clean things up. Packing is really good. And what I would like to show you guys is the new brush tool. So we have relax still by polygon, angles by edges, but now this one is working based on a brush. Okay, so we can start with a brush, and to start by painting UVs, we have freeform, so we can start by using brushes in there as well. Let me reset my UVs. Okay, reset my UVs. Let me open up my UV editor, okay, because I really want to show you guys this. I'm gonna set it to polygons. I'm gonna do flatten custom. Okay, fair enough. There we go. And what I want to do is I'm gonna set my packing to a very low value. So I'm gonna set it to 0.001, would like to do rotation the clusters, and I'm going to pack normalize. Okay, and this is going to give you very nice unwrapped UVs for ready for painting. So that was just in a nutshell. Really nice. It's really good. Unwrapping inside Max 2017. Yeah, animation productivity. Monster keys, which were a script in the past, are completely embedded inside Max 2017. So if you open up a scene with, of course, animation, I'm going to select this part, I'm going to open up the curve editor. Of course, it will show you all the new icons in here. We have a better clarification for X, Y, Z. We have a huge amount of new filters. So right now it's filtering selected objects. I can filter selected tracks. I can filter by animated tracks. I can filter by keyable tracks. So all that kind of new stuff is in there. Also navigation, we can now frame horizontal and vertical extents just as easy as it is. That can be done down there. We have a huge amount of new options down here. So we have things like select next key, cycles to the next key, shift clicking, and it goes back. We can do grow key and shrink key. We can scale the tangents and notch and all that kind of stuff in there. This was a script called Monster Keys, now available by default in the curve editor. Also very interesting. Down here you will find buffer curves, and buffer curves will show you the original curve. So if I do any manipulation, I'm offsetting the time. This is the original curve, and now what I can do, I can swap curves with the buffer. So I can literally swap back to the original curve, or I can swap back to my adjusted curve. So we can do a snapshot, so that I'm able to do undos, or it can be baked down. So if I switch it off, Max will bake down the keys. So it's really nice if you're doing a huge amount of animation. The curve editor in Max is really nice with all these new additions down there. Also the enhanced motion panel. So if you have a list controller, you can double click on the controller to activate it. And we have custom attributes preset, so much easier for setting keys. This came from extension regards to skinning, geodesic voxel binding, and heat map skinning. Gives a much better skinning result, and that's available. MCG Animation Controllers are in there. which came from the extension for Max 2016. The new text environments, Text Plus, where you can also use variables or scripts in the text, can be rendered out with the new text map. We still have the live Stingray linking, so we link our Max viewport to the game engine. So if you change the camera or change material or the geometry, it's going to be an update in your engine. Same goes for the shader support. We have the game exporter, of course, inside Max 2017 for exporting your assets into Unity, Unreal, but also, of course, Autodesk Stingray. Creative Market Search for buying or selling assets. You can open your own shop and start selling your own assets. And of course, there is a quality control. So you're not able to start selling your green or blue Max teapot. That's not going to happen, right? And simulation data, which is also a big part with regards of simulation, computational fluid dynamics. So if you do have any results based on pressure, temperature, or velocity, that can be visualized and animated inside 3ds Max. This is the shape map, or if you have your text object can be rendered out to a texture. So based on your text plus object, you can drive displacement. And last but not least is Print Studio support. So finally, we have something for production out of Max. So you can send your geometry straight to Print Studio, which is part of the Autodesk Spark platform. And from there, you can check if there are any errors in the mesh. You can automatically generate supports, and then you can send to a file to the printer or to a file, and the file then can be sent over to a print service over there. So that was it from my side. I'm gonna hand it over just a couple of minutes to Matthew. He's gonna say some final words. From my side, I would like to thank you guys for your attention. And again, this is really the best Max I've seen in such a long time. Thank you.